Well, for many liberals in the West, like Bernie Sanders, who love to sing the praises of socialism and communism and collectivism, they likely have no idea what it actually looks like. They've never been to North Korea. They've never been to the failed state of Venezuela. But if they could travel back in time to Stalin's Soviet Union, would they change their mind after what they see? Our next guest is a political analyst who grew up in the Soviet Union, watched it collapse, and then remained in Russia under Vladimir Putin ever since. So he's going to give us a first-hand look at what it was like to grow up in the communist Soviet Union and what it looks like today. Dmitry Zolotarev is a political analyst, and he joins us now. Nice to see you, Dmitry. Welcome back to the show. Where are you joining us from? Let our audience know where you're joining us from.
Thanks for having me, first of all. And I'm joining you from the heart of Siberia.
Siberia.
Yeah.
Have you spent your whole life in Siberia?
Almost. I used to move. I was born in Irkutsk. Then a year or so later, we moved to the south of Russia. And after the next years, we came back to Siberian exile, should I say.
We call them snowbirds. So you moved to the south for the beaches and the palm trees, and then you moved back north for the cold weather. What was it like growing up in Siberia? What was it like? Describe sort of the weather and what you would normally, normal school day would look like for you.
You see, now it looks like we will be having palms and coconut trees
Right.
around here because it got much warmer comparing to my childhood times. That time we had normal Siberian winter with heavy frosts. Well, minus 30 Celsius was normal. If you have, but you were not allowed, you were allowed not to attend school if it hit minus 30 Celsius. So because it was too cold, and 25 was just normal for us to go skiing after school. It was wonderful.
Wow.
You see, Siberia is a wonderful place, and you should visit it someday because we have most of the sunny days within a year, even more than Crimea. That's a fact. So it's beautiful here, and my childhood at school was wonderful. I graduated from school here in Irkutsk, in the scientific center of Irkutsk. It was the best school. Math and physics were at the first place on top of all for us. And I was a kind of, sluggish student, in fact, but I did really have a really good background. School education in Soviet Union was basically maybe the best in the world. I don't want to offend anyone, but John Kennedy even said that the major power of Soviet Union is education, and he was right. So our day was divided into two parts. For some classes did have their classes starting 8 in the morning, and the other shift was going to school from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and ending up to 8 p.m., depending on how many classes you have.
8 p.m.?
Yeah, 8 p.m.
Wow.
Well, let's say if you start at 2 p.m., it's pretty much okay to finish at 8 p.m. since you have, let's say 6 classes. 2 math, 1 Russian, 1 literature, 1 geography, let's say, and 1 biology. It was absolutely okay. And we were preparing for classes since in the morning. If we were going 1 year from second shift, and if we were first shift, so we were free like at 12 or sometimes 2 p.m. If we were 6 up to 10th year students. So we did have all the day remaining because the first shift was my favorite actually.
Yeah, then you have the rest of the day open. What years are we talking about here, Dmitry? What years were you in grammar school?
I went to school in 1980. In 1980, yes, and I graduated in 1990. we did have our basic 10-year education, and right after us, it was prolonged. They added 1 year, so 11 classes, just like now.
So you were in school during the height of the Cold War. I mean, really the
Yeah.
Reagan Gorbachev era, and of course, it must have been unbelievable for you as a child. You know, in the United States at the time, of course, we were seeing all sorts of movies that were propagandizing communism and talking about the Soviet Union and the sort of back and forth. And we saw, of course, you know, Rocky movies where, you know, Rocky was taking on the Soviet champ. Were you aware of like American culture, American movies, American commentary about the communist Soviet Union at the time as a child?
Absolutely. You'll be surprised, but my favorite TV shows were about politics since I was first year's schoolboy. Those were International Panorama, and the second was I'm translating in English something like today today in the world. Today in the world. What's going on today in the world? And those shows were hosted by diplomats, highly educated people, and they did have really good footages about the life in the United States, Great Britain, France. By the way, Soviet Union did have a really good relationship with France. And sometimes they were BS'd, saying that this is bad in the West, and but looking behind the years, most of that BS was practically true. Sometimes it was just a little bit exaggerated, but they didn't lie to us. And sometimes they did show us some footages from the movies, which were not imported into Soviet Union. We did we did have an opportunity to watch Western movies, even American movies, like this movie with Jeff Bridges and Jane Fonda about the alien who came to the Earth and took the looks of her husband, and
Starman. I remember that. Starman, right? Was that the
right.
name of the movie? Yes.
Right. Yes.
So
exactly.
you managed to see that.
Yeah. When I was was going to finishing my 6th year in school. So different movies and a lot of French movies due to good relationships with France, especially comedies and another thing was the music, because we didn't have an opportunity to listen to AC/DC. Rolling Stones, they were not allowed, but some bootlegs did come through the border, and we were quite good educated about Western music. So, speaking about the TV shows, they were fascinating, and I just was taken like a magnet by those shows, because I always been fascinated about what it's like, the life in the West. I used to watch spy movies, some of which were based, Soviet movies, by the way, which were based on real stories, and especially, they were shot in 60s, 70s, and you see,
They were filmed. These are Soviet movies you're talking about, right? Or
right,
these are Western
right.
movies. Soviet movies. So
Soviet
were you
movies.
seeing? So you were not allowed to see a lot of Western stuff. It was not allowed to cross the border. It would come through with bootlegs. You managed to get some music, but it was really the communist government of the Soviet Union would not allow you to see Western films. Mostly, you would get some stuff from France.
Right. Some of them were just imported and showed to to Russian audience, like old American movies. Just I don't remember what's the English name of the movie with Marilyn Monroe, jazzing girl, mafia, Chicago, and Do you remember the movie? So
I
just wonderful
that's even before,
comedy.
yeah, from the 1960s, 19
Some
yeah
like it hot or
1960.
something like that.
Some Like It Hot, yeah. Okay, so you
Yeah,
got to see
yeah,
that, but they really
yeah.
didn't want you to see. They
With
did. They really
cuts
didn't
off.
want you. Yeah, they really didn't want you to see Western culture, Western movies. What do you think they were afraid of by show if you would have seen those movies?
That's what was the problem about the Soviet Union, to my opinion. I think they were afraid of people wanting more. You see, we did have many benefits in Soviet Union, and the quality of life was really high. But we were not rich people, most of us. We did have anything, not everything we needed, mostly. But some people wanted to have more money, to earn more money, to have bigger summer cottage,
And you couldn't
and
do
you
that.
see what you see what I mean. And well, I think they were afraid that most of the many people would want to have more, and they will be, you see, infected with the
Infected by the West.
facade of Western life.
Infected
Yes.
by freedom. That, oh, you want to have a summer cottage, you want to have a boat, you want to work hard and under
Well,
a
we did
capitalist government.
many people did have fishing boats and sometimes big boats, which they used to build themselves. Sometimes they used to buy it. A lot of people just did have a possibility to really to earn really good money. Pilots, train locomotive drivers, a lot of people. But most of the people, they lived on average life in which a lot of things were not just available. So that
When
was
you
the
say things
problem.
weren't when you say things were not available, we always hear about the footage and photos of bread lines and food and those types of things. When you say things were not available, what things were not available?
Well, if you even did have have enough money, just sometimes you could not just buy a car. It was a deficit. You did have so let's say, stay in line, just wait for the car available for you to buy. Sometimes a few years. That was the
A few
problem. But a
years.
lot of people, yeah,
Wow.
a few years. Just you signed up for the car, and in 3 years or 5 years, depending on where you work and what's your rank at work, sometimes you were allowed to buy a car just right away if you were the member of the party and a good worker and so on and so forth as a reward. But
If you
the
were a member
cars
of the
was
party, isn't
sort of
that
deficit.
that of course is the what a lot of people in the West, or at least liberals in the West, don't seem to understand, is that if you were a member of the elite, or if you were a member of the party in good standing, if you were a high-ranking member, then the idea of collectivism really didn't. Is this wrong to say this? That it really didn't affect those individuals because they were able to get the expensive liquor. They
Actually,
were able.
actually
They
it
were able to.
did.
It
Actually,
did
it did
affect them.
because, huh? Yeah,
I'm
actually, it
sorry.
did affect them because to be the member of the party means a lot of responsibility, meant a lot of responsibility in Soviet Union. You must be the leader, you must be the best. So you have to lead people with your, so just to show them how good they can be and how good you are. Most of it, most of the idea just was really true. The members, the highest ranking members of the party, they lived, yeah, way better than average people. But well, not every time it was just you see like palaces and just better flats, better apartments, better money, better possibilities. But we were speaking about Republican governments and the country's government. Most of the members, even high-ranking members of the party in the regions, they were just like normal people, and their salary didn't differ too much from salary of high-qualified worker and on the factory. And the lines for food, it is true. But speaking of Gorbachev's times, and sometimes the time of deficit in Brezhnev times, but not everywhere. It was available, but you just had to stay in line for, let's say, 15 minutes, sometimes longer for some imported goods or something which was really hard to come by, like, let's say, well, some delicacy or something like that. And but no one was starving. I can say I can tell you this. It was not like people were starving. It was lots of different goods, lots of different products. And by the way, the things were better when Stalin was the head of the Communist Party and head of the country. It was maybe the richest time of the Soviet Union before Khrushchev. Because Khrushchev came, it's another topic. It's a big story, but when Khrushchev came, he just broke up Stalin's economy, which was working really good for the country. And due to some mistakes and changes in the economy, Khrushchev's heritage was not good for 80s, the Brezhnev times. But anyway, it was not a disaster. Real disaster was Gorbachev and Yeltsin, by the way. That's what I remember pretty much.
You obviously didn't live under Stalin.
Absolutely not.
Do people in Russia, I mean, to the West, I think most people would agree that Stalin was brutal. Is that not the case? To people that lived in Russia, do you feel like you hold him up in higher regard than maybe people in the West would hold him?
We are touching the very delicate topic because Stalin's story is a steel pain in Russia. Some people believe he was a thug, bloody dictator, and the other. But when the real facts were revealed, it turned out that Stalin was a bit or maybe much different. But it's a different story. Let's talk about maybe next time about Stalin. But my grandma lived in Stalin's time. By the way, my grandfather was a high-ranking officer in NKVD.
Mm-hmm.
You see, Stalin's KGB.
Right, predecessor.
Well, for the audience to understand, NKVD, People's Commissionary of Internal Affairs, but they also dealt with not only internal affairs, but also with international affairs. So, by the way, in 30s, my grandfather was arrested twice here in Irkutsk. But he was
by Stalin during. Was this during Stalin's Great Purge? For the audience that might not know what that is,
right.
Between 750 million to 1.2 million were rounded up and sent to gulags. Right? Is that during that time period by Stalin?
Later, I'll combine with numbers, but yes, we are talking about that very period when his colleagues denigrated him, and he was arrested. He was arrested once, and then next year the second time. But the Moscow chiefs just released him right away in a few weeks because he was a great officer and was really doing a really great job for the country and for the party, by the way. He was Persian descent. He spoke Farsi. And so, you see, my grandma remembers that when in 50s, early 50s and late 40s, when they were visited drama theater in Irkutsk, after the performance, they just could go to the store and just to have, light supper or something, buy bread and a can of black caviar, which was sold just like butter in the store next to the theater. So there was no deficit. That's what she remembers about the Stalin's time, because it was better than under Khrushchev and better than Brezhnev. Well, but it's a different story. It's a very
Right.
complicated story, by the way.
Well, we could go back and spend a lot of time on Stalin, which is before your time. So I think we should definitely talk about your experience in the 80s and then, of
Absolutely,
course,
yeah.
the collapse of the Soviet Union. So,
Mhm.
did you, growing up, were you aware? I mean, you were certainly aware of the West. Were you taught to demonize the West? Were you taught to hate freedoms that we might experience in the United States? Were you taught that, you need to follow the Soviet rule in a communist education system, and that you should not focus on the West? Did that come up in your education at all?
Some teachers were telling us what was good in the West and what was bad in the West, comparing to our system where we lived. And speaking of education, yes, and there was not aggressive narrative to hate West. No, not at all. We were not taught to hate Americans, hate British people. We were taught that there are a lot of great people in America, great people in Great Britain, but there was a class of oligarchs which exploit them, just regular people, and that what was really bad about that capitalist system. They never demonized people. They never demonized just the country. They said that the system was bad. Socialist system is good because they cared about people, and the capitalist system was bad. But actually, well, some social programs were working in the West, but some were not. In the Soviet Union, we did have really great social programs. But in fact, I can't remember any aggressive narratives to hate, well, people or country or something like that. We were studying classic American literature and classic musicians all over the world. So, and we were taught about Beatles, by the way, and we knew ABBA, Swedish group, and we knew a lot of French
Yeah.
singers and some American music, yes, which was politically okay with the system.
We were the same. I mean, we were taught, we were taught about your writers, of course. We were studying them in school. We were studying your music. We were studying, Tolstoy. We were studying, Dostoevsky. We were studying Tchaikovsky. So we were we were aware of this in the United States, and we were forced to read it in our English classes as well. So that's interesting that you were also reading and studying American literature and reading American books. And
William
it's funny
Faulkner,
how,
Theodore Dreiser, John Steinbeck,
yeah,
Jack London.
wow. Yeah, it's amazing to me because we were told in the 1980s, that Russia, we have to fear the Soviet Union. We have to fear the Soviet Union. We had movies like Red Dawn, where it showed the Soviet Union invading the United States, and a ragtag group of Americans takes to the hills to stop the Soviet invasion of the United States. So, that's sort of what Hollywood was pushing out. It was, it was definitely relying on this fear. We were told. And that's part of the massive military-industrial complex in the United States, is that you can't have the military-industrial complex without an enemy. You need an enemy in order to justify the amount of nuclear weapons you're building and warships that you're building because of the great Russian red threat. Was there any talk among your friends growing up that, I think, the Soviet Union is probably going to invade the United States? Was there any sense of that from you guys?
Nothing of the kind, because there was any idea about invading the United States or going aggressive against anyone. We went through the horrible war, Second World War, Great Patriotic War, and Soviet military idea was always defensive, actually. And at school, we did have 2 years to go through military studies. Yeah. Once a week, we did have military lessons, and a real war veteran was teaching us how to use guns, tactics, basics, and there was never an idea of invading anyone, just defending. The only low point was actually Afghanistan. But it was just protecting Najibullah's government. But that was a bit questionable. A lot of people didn't approve the idea of going to Afghanistan, which exactly, by the way, in particular, killed the Soviet Union. So nothing of the kind. And I was intending to go to the military school, after school, actually. I did have a lot of friends with parents in army, officers. I knew a lot of friends of my family were officers, pilots. We did have a bombardment army located not far from Irkutsk, and a lot of them did have summer cottages next to our city, and we saw them, talked to them. Absolutely normal people, great people, which were, by the way, really fond of American movies, British movies, British and American music, and they understood pretty well what are the politicians, what were the intentions of the military complex, and who were American people. If you remember Samantha Smith, who wrote the letter to Andropov, by the way, it was a social bomb when she came to Soviet Union, and they showed her some life in Soviet Union, mostly true, and then we were shown a lot of things, footages about the United States, by the way, during her visit in the news.
When you, I'm trying to understand, as a child, right? In America, as a child, you ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, as a child, I was making videos. I was tinkering in my bedroom all the time, making, coming up with ideas and making home videos with my friends and trying to think about a business that I might start someday. And, sky was the limit in your brain. Like if you could envision it, you could reach for it. And you're the only one in your way. Yes, you have government regulations that can get in your way, of course, but really you are your only limitation in the United States. And so I see my son, who's 14 years old now, and he's, he loves to write music, and he's composing, and he's thinking about what he wants to do, and maybe movie composing, and all of these things are running through his brain. As a child in the Soviet Union, do you have those same sort of hopes and dreams? And then would your government allow you to reach for the stars, I guess, is the way to put it?
Absolutely. You could reach anywhere except for business. Business,
well, that's a huge part of it.
Not in commercial meaning.
You can't start your own business. Yeah.
Yeah, we were not studying business, but it's a different topic. There were some forms of private businesses in Soviet Union, but it's a different long story. Everything belonged to the government, and you could make a huge plant CEO, no problem. If you're a good work, and by the way, just you might start as a regular worker, and they allowed you to go to study and then come back as an engineer, and from an engineer to make a CEO of a huge plant. It was absolutely normal. I dreamed to become an officer, and in the same time, I dreamed to become a musician and actor, both. I was I used to take part in the school theater. I used to play musical instruments, pan flute and piano, and I couldn't decide what to do best. To become an officer, because it's very romantic, uniform, ladies like you, and so on and so forth, or to become a musician and actor. Ladies also love you, and if you're a good actor, everybody loves you. We did have a lot of great actors in the Soviet Union, loved just nationwide. So actually, you did have really good opportunities just to pop up in some far, far away village and end up in the best theater in Moscow, like my second cousin did. He just came far, far away from Siberia and became a best ballet dancer of Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg because he was just talented. So, just like that, yeah.
So interesting, fascinating. So on the business side, you're not starting your own business because the government owns that. So if you want to
Yeah.
design the hula hoop, if you want to design the hula hoop and you have an idea, you're not doing that. But if you want to become an actor, you want to reach for the stars in other ways. That's fascinating. So let's talk about, you were in school, you were wrapping up your schooling right as the Soviet Union was collapsing in 1991. So
Right.
the day after Christmas, 1991, the Soviet Union officially declared the end of the Soviet Union. Were you happy about that? Was your family happy about that? Were you terrified? What was going through the zeitgeist at the time around your friends and family?
You see, people started to understand what was going on pretty much earlier, way before Soviet Union officially collapsed. In, let's say, 1986 and 87, a lot of people did hate Gorbachev. They started to understand the processes of dismembering the country, dismembering the system, which provided people with not only be sure in tomorrow, but we were sure in 10 years ahead. We knew exactly that everything will be stable and good. So when people started to understand that, a lot of people just didn't like it. And the country was divided into two parts, plus, give or take, equal parts. Some were embracing common Western, well, trends, let's say, commercialism, and breaking down the system. And some people just hated it. I was not sure by that time. Everything new was fascinating. We started seeing a lot of things which we didn't see, and that was fascinating for kids, by the way. But our parents and our grandparents, who understood what was going on, started explaining to us what was the thing. And yeah, that was actually sad because the inflation was enormous already before Soviet Union collapsed. And way later, years after that, we learned that that was not the nature taking its course. It was created artificially. All those things which were going on in Soviet Union, I mean, in economics, Soviet economics. But that time, some people embraced it. Wow, everything was interesting. Now we can do business. Now we can start our own business. Even in Soviet Union, Gorbachev allowed to start your small business and to sell anything everywhere, which was not absolutely allowed before. You just couldn't that. It was against the law to sell something, to buy, well, let's say American jeans and sell it twice the price or something like that. And you might go to jail for that. And now you can buy anything and sell anything. And a lot of people used to make money this way. So, yeah, some people understood and some people were just happy about that. It was very
Well,
strange, bizarre time.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And let's talk about Vladimir Putin. Of course, he's been your
Okay.
leader for many, many, many years. And there's been a lot of people in the West that say that he wants a return to the Soviet Union, and those in Russia say that's just absolute lie. That he does not want to have anything to do with the Soviet Union in a communist country. What do you believe? Where do you believe Russia is headed? Do you believe that there are people who want to return to the Soviet era of collectivism?
A lot of people, even young people, really want to come back to that era, to those standards, moral standards, ideology, because a lot of good, we did have a lot of good things in Soviet Union. But speaking of Vladimir Putin, I really believe he doesn't want that at all. Yes, he used to be a Soviet officer. He was brought up in Soviet Union by war heroes, and he does embraces really good things about the Soviet history. But I don't believe that he really dreams about coming back to Soviet Union. He's not, well, he's not really a Soviet person, to tell you the truth. And speaking of him and communism, very little connects him to communism. He just wants to be a president of prosperous country, which takes the best from the Soviet Union and goes its own way as a capitalist system. Well, let's be frank. We are living in a capitalist world. Well, we can say that we live in a communist world. Even in China, China moved from communism to a very different form. Now it's not communist country. Yes, Communist Party is a ruling party, but China, I don't believe, is a communist party. So I think Vladimir Putin wants something different for Russia, just to be more like Tsar Russia, Emperor's Russia. You see? Well, to bring the best from those times, pre-revolutionary times, and to take the best of the what was the best of Soviet Union. So social programs and a lot of things.
Yeah, the social programs, education. We know that Americans even take Russian math because the standards for education in modern Russia are very, very high. So Americans actually on Sundays will take Russian math. Wall Street Journal did a whole deep dive piece about that. So they have very high standards for education. So maybe taking those pieces and bringing it into this capitalist system. But there are those who would say, if I walk down the street of Moscow and I yell out, down with Putin and, or whatever, if I would say something negative about Vladimir Putin, that I would be arrested. I would be disappeared. I would be thrown into a Russian prison and held against my will. Is that true? And do Russians sort of live with a fear of their government in that way?
Not like that. Not like that. You see, since the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine, well, special military operation, which is officially called, actually. So, there were some laws going in power. So, according to which you cannot denigrate the Russian army. You cannot denigrate the political course, which I frankly, I don't know. I don't really like that because
that's not freedom. That's not freedom of speech, right?
It's sort of rolled back from our freedoms. We did have a lot of freedoms in the Soviet Union and a lot of freedom in Russia, really a lot of freedom. But by the way, right now you can find a lot of liberal voices in Russian press, in Russian internet resources, since they are not destructive in Russia, so they don't conduct anything which is really destructive or undermining Russia. It's just okay to say some critical things. The only thing you're not allowed to do is to say, something which is not factual about Russian army which fights in Ukraine. Yes, this is very sensitive thing, very sensitive thing. But if you want to say, I don't approve that, I think we should go different way. And I want some explanations why, let's say, why we have Kursk incursion. Why that happens? And a lot of people say, even Russian news outlets, that that was a failure of a local government in Kursk, that we do some problems in army, we do problems in local governments, or even in a Ministry of Defense. And you see lots of arrests are still going on in Moscow. They arrest general after general, and they prosecute them for abuse of power, for corruption, a lot of things. And this is officially, highlighted in the press. So it's not
So the press does call out the corruption in the government. The press does call out maybe a failed military operation on a particular battlefield. They will call it out and say that was a failure.
Well, you see, we don't know a lot about what is going on in particular
Battle zones.
on the front line. And
Yeah.
I think they just don't give us all the information about failures, all the failures, but some information, most of it, is known, and the information about what's going on in Kursk is known because people talk to each other in Kursk region. In well, my second cousin lives in Krasnodar, which is not far from Ukraine. They are being hit by drones, even their city. So we talk to each other and we have some information. We have some information from the front lines by the wounded guys who come here to recover or come back home. So, and sometimes they say, yeah, really hard things to hear. But most of it are in the press and it's discussed. And so I just, not far from not long before our conversation, just a glimpse, the one of the main news outlets about one of the generals who was prosecuted. So an update of this story. So more or less, it's like this. But yes, if you are denigrating or saying untruthful things about Russian army, you most probably will be prosecuted and taken to jail, but not so hard. And if you are criticizing and criticizing from the standpoint of facts, it's absolutely okay.
Oh, okay. It's hard for me as an American to hear that because I spend my whole day criticizing my government. So, and criticizing our military leaders and the military industrial complex in the deep state. So if I was living in Russia with doing this show, I might be arrested talking about that.
No,
but
I don't think you would be arrested if you would do that in Russia the way you do it here. I
because
really
we're using
maybe,
facts.
yeah, if you're talking about facts, known facts, there's no problem. There's no problem. If you're saying not truthful things, that's the problem, and that's what may cause the arrest and prosecution.
Spreading propaganda and fake news. Got it.
Yeah.
Dmitry, I know we got to wrap up here, but would you ever want to go back and live in the Soviet Union, or are you happy with the way Russia is now, as under a capitalist system?
Frankly, both. Frankly, at some point, I love the way things go in Russia now, and I have some nostalgia for the Soviet Union, for the way it was, and we always really, you see, sensitive and having bittersweet memories of the past. It's okay.
Right.
But I'm the person who, and I'm the person who doesn't live in the past. I go forward. We have what we have, and I embrace a lot of good things in my life, and I really hope that the life will be better. And I'm unhappy with a lot of things. And I'm unhappy, by the way, with slowing down or almost blocking YouTube in Russia, which I absolutely don't approve. So I can tell you this. And you see, both. Yeah. I do remember, I love my motherland, Soviet Union. I love it. No doubt about that. But I also love Russia. I love my life, and I really believe it will be just better, like this. Frankly,
do you think? I'll get you out of here with this, Dmitry. Do you think that there are freedoms in Russia right now? You mentioned blocking YouTube, blocking websites. Are there other freedoms that you feel like are being inhibited by your government that you wish you had in current modern Russia?
Well, speaking about freedoms, we have lots of freedoms, and blocking YouTube is not ripping off with a freedom. It's a political and economic war, and it's a part of it. You see, blocking YouTube is a part of the war with the West. Well, Cold War is going on, and it's getting hotter. Let's say, sometimes in Ukraine it got hotter, but we are still at war. Let's be frank about this. And this is part of the war. And I think when things will go to normal, those details of life, like YouTube and maybe other platforms which were blocked, will come back. Maybe they won't, but there will be other ways. And frankly, life in Russia is pretty much about freedom. And since we just have some ways and platforms blocked, yeah, we just feel uncomfortable. What the heck? What's going on? Why we are ripped with this? And I'm, as a YouTuber, are having problems with that. And I have different opinion. Why they're doing that? YouTube, by the way, is one of the best, or maybe the best social platform video hosting in the world, because it beholds the best of the rules. There is no things like you can see on other platforms, like, let's say, Facebook or Twitter. It's not allowed because it's just not normal to have those things. And yeah, and by the way, in some parts, YouTube treats Russian bloggers better than some Russian platforms. That's a paradox, but that's a fact.
I mean, I know our show Redacted is, as you mentioned, widely watched in Russia, as we've been unafraid to tell the truth about what's been going on with this war and the genocide that Ukraine and the CIA have been carrying out against ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine, what was eastern Ukraine since 2014. You know, we were called Putin apologists. No, we were just presenting the facts. And so, you know, I've never met Putin, and I've never been to Russia. But, you know, when you stare at facts and you know that your government is lying to you, and the deep state inside the CIA, you know, the CIA and the FBI inside the United States that lie for a living, you make a lot of enemies that way. So,
yeah. So liberals, lots of liberals feel really comfortable in Russia right now, by the way. And still alive and kicking and going free.
Interesting. Dmitry, great to have you on the show. This was fascinating to hear about this.
Thank you.
Growing up in the Soviet Union.
Here.
Yeah, to hear what your family was going through during the collapse of the Soviet Union, and your thoughts on so many things, on Putin, and kind of looking back with rose-colored glasses at some of what you loved from the Soviet Union and what you love about modern Russia and the capitalist system that you have now. Yeah. So, and reminding everyone that there's still a war. So all of these things are happening under that lens. Dmitry, where can people find you?
They can find me on my YouTube channel. My handle is @character Zolotarev DM. Well, or even easier, my channel's name is Daily Planet. Just punch Daily Planet YouTube channel, and the handle is different, but the channel name is Daily Planet. I think you guess why. I'm a huge fan of Superman.
Yeah. Yes, that's amazing. Dmitry, great to see you. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.